So anything else you want to say about systemic therapy before we go and talk about local therapy in the context of genitourinary symptoms of menopause?
Yeah, I think we haven't spent a lot of time really talking about the symptoms of menopause, right?
Yeah.
What are we treating? Why do people need systemic therapy? And I think, I'm often saying that menopause has the worst PR campaign in the history of the universe. Why? Because we think it's for old people and we think it's just hot flashes. And we think hot flashes go away. There's actually not enough education. Like, we can argue about E1, E2, and E3, but the reality is doctors don't even know the symptoms of menopause. Patients don't even know the symptoms of menopause, right? The person who was doing my makeup this morning, she's like, I just feel awful. I feel like an old person. I'm not sleeping. I'm not fun anymore. I can't drink. I can't, my joints are achy. And I said, welcome to You Need Hormone Therapy, right? Like, I'm always teaching, no matter who I'm, whether it's a cab driver, a hairstylist, I'm always teaching. But this idea of you have hormone receptors throughout your whole body. It is a whole body experience. So yes, there's hot flashes and night sweats. And by the way, hot flashes are not just a nuisance. That is a neurologic, vasculogenic probably event, right? The worse your hot flashes, the worse your risk of cardiovascular issues and things like that. Joint pain is a huge one. I never thought as a urologist I would treat so much joint pain. Never in a million years did I think I cared about joint pain. And yet patients come in all the time and say, oh my God, I don't get out of bed feeling old. I don't feel creaky. My joints recover again after I exercise. And again, empty gas tank, inflammation. I think hormones are nature's a joint fluid, if you will. So almost like brake fluid, right? Go back to the car analogy.
We are going to milk the heck out of this, and I love it.
So it's really cool. So your eyes need lubrication, your ears need wax, your vagina needs lubrication, your joints actually need lubrication. And so think of horny teenager. You've got oils, oily skin. So hormones create these oils, vaginal lubrication, oil for your skin. There are androgen receptors in your eyeballs, right? In these meibomian glands. So I think of hormones like fluid. So as you lose the hormones or the hormones go too high or too low, it dries everything out. And so you get joint pain, you get frozen shoulder, you get plantar fasciitis. And now it was recently published on by my colleague Vonda Wright, the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, right? This idea that so many women in their 40s and 50s, everything starts to break down. It's because the gas tank is empty and that inflammation increases. It's such a simple analogy. So what are the symptoms? You get musculoskeletal symptoms, sleep issues, mood issues, bleeding changes, obviously low libido, orgasm problems, arousal problems, pain with sex increases like crazy. I sent you a list here. What am I missing? You've got a list there.
Irritability, very common one. I think the one that I was going to ask you about is brain fog and depression. This is one where I think this is a very unique one because it's one that gets easily dismissed as something unrelated. Mm-hmm. Say more about those.
It's one of the most common symptoms, and all women start going to doctors in their 40s. Like doctors, I know you're listening, and you get so many people, and every day you say, oh, it's probably hormonal, but you're not giving them the solution. You're just telling them it's not cancer. So the neurologists are seeing all these patients to rule out, a cognitive decline or all these other issues. But really, it's that brain fog because your brain is filled with estrogen receptors. This is crazy research. Okay, I don't know if you've had Lisa Mosconi on, but here's this researcher from Cornell, neuroscience researcher, who says, hey, I want to study Alzheimer's. I want to do this. This is just in the last couple years. And she goes to her lab manager and says, okay, what's the assay for estradiol in the brain? I need to look at estradiol receptors in the brain. And the people at Cornell was like, that doesn't exist. She's like, what do you mean that doesn't exist? She's like, how can we not look at estrogen receptors in the brain? So she gets Maria Shriver to give her a giant amount of money, who gives her a huge amount of money. So she now develops this assay. This is only within the last couple of years. She just published in Nature very early findings that what would you expect, right? Your body is efficient. It's not going to do things it doesn't need to do. So the hypothesis was that as menopause gets later and later, the estrogen receptors in your brain are going to downregulate. Why have receptors around when when there's no estrogen to feed the brain. What did she find? The exact opposite, right? That actually, even up to 65, she stopped looking past 65 because she's like, there's no way that's going to matter. They increase in receptor density the older you get, and it correlates to brain fog and irritability, sort of correlates to all these symptoms.
My reading of that was estrogen is so important in the brain that it has to upregulate the receptors as the estrogen level goes down and down and
to
down.
Get every morsel.
In other words, it's a lot like the way the brain is treated for glucose. The body will, if you are fasting, the muscles will within days become completely insulin resistant. It's their way of saying every molecule of glucose that liver spits out better not go into the muscle. It better go to the brain. And so you look like you have diabetes in an effort to save glucose for the brain. And I think that's what's happening with estrogen.
And could you argue that weight gain in menopause is evolutionary so that you make more estrone or whatever, right? That then goes to the brain because it wants every morsel that it can get, right? So this idea of hormones matter for the brain deeply, right? This is very important. So it's fascinating research, but you're going to see a lot of, again, think of a receptor. As perimenopause is happening, the receptors are full. Now they're empty. Then they're full. Now they're empty. Now they're half full. Now they're empty. This is why we see ADHD pop up in perimenopause. All these women are saying, I have now new diagnosed ADHD. It's real. Why? Because your brain is having a panic attack because it's just trying to figure out some stability here, which is why actually in empty gas tank, so in menopause, when you are totally empty, the brain fog gets better, right? Because there's stability.
The volatility of hormone gets
it's not
less,
volatile anymore. But if we all I'm saying is just add some estrogen, right, to just keep the receptors happy.
The other one that we didn't talk about was the urinary symptoms. So both urinary incontinence and then the higher prevalence of UTIs. You've alluded to it a little bit, but just maybe finish the swing on that.
Okay, so this is my favorite topic in the history of topics because we used to call this problem, initially it was called senile vagina. That was the initial, there was papers written on the senile vagina. Then it got updated.
I don't even understand what that means.
An old vagina, I suppose. But then it got changed to vulvovaginal atrophy or atrophic vaginitis. That was the terminology that was used
I'm familiar
up
with
until
that term.
24. Before that, it was senile vagina.
I totally missed that.
Check the history books. It's very fascinating. So vulvovaginal atrophy was sort of the common name of this. As you get older, the vagina atrophies. It shrivels up. It shrinks up. Again, if a penis shriveled up at age 52, we'd probably have a vaccine sponsored by Pfizer, right? This is they created Viagra. They would create this vaccine. No one even tells women.
I love that analogy. So you're saying if by the time a man became 50, his penis became a shriveled up, useless organ, you're saying that the medical system would have probably done something about this?
Think, right? Tell me what you think.
You might be onto something, Rachel.
I know what I'm talking about. So this is right. So this is the thing. We just called it vulvovaginal atrophy, and we said, well, if you have pain with sex or a little vaginal dryness, here's some moisturizers, here's some lubricants. Here you go. If you're really bothered, you gotta be really bothered. Then there's this thing called vaginal estrogen that we could give you. Now, here's the crazy part of this is it's not just a little vaginal dryness. The vagina and the bladder need hormones, right? Babies don't have hormones, and that's why you see it's red, it's irritated. There are these small little labia minora. Diaper cream was invented, right, because it looks so painful. Then hormones, they pee their diapers all the time. The genitals morph and change with hormones, right? Puberty happens, and you have a change of the genital and urinary system. And so what happens is as you lose hormones, it goes in reverse. And so it changes the microbiome. The hormones keep the tissue acidic. It grows the healthy lactobacilli. It is the vagina is supposed to be acidic. It's supposed to be able to fight infection. And without proper hormones, you lose that ability to fight infection. So you see urinary frequency, urinary urgency, vaginal dryness, increase in leakage, increase in urge incontinence, and recurrent urinary tract infections, which can and do kill people. Okay, we've known this since the 90s in the New England Journal of Medicine. Actually, this was on estriol. They looked, you could reduce the risk of urinary tract infections by well over 50%. We have known this all along. And yet...
And that was with topical estriol.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that. And yet there is no FDA-approved estriol formulation despite that fact?
Yeah. Correct. I think it's available in Europe. So the name got changed in 2014. Okay, 2014, a bunch of people got in a room and they said, you know what, this vulvovaginal atrophy thing, that's kind of a bad name because it doesn't describe what's really happening to people. So they changed the name to Genitourinary Syndrome of Menopause, GSM. Now, there was one urologist, my mentor, was in the room, and they almost didn't put the word urinary in it. And he fought and he yelled and he screamed. This is the power of one person to be able to change the whole world. And they said, okay, we'll listen to you. We'll put the word urinary in it. And I'm so glad they did, because the urinary problems are the things that kill people, right? People are dying of urinary tract infection. In fact, a large amount of money goes to Medicare expenditures when it comes to urinary tract infections. And we published last year that if Medicare patients used vaginal estrogen, which is safe for everybody and $13 a tube, we would save Medicare between $6 and $22 billion a year. Billion.
Just say that again, please, because I know there are people that are in the Medicare system who are going to be interested to understand that.
Okay, so when you do a low dose local vaginal estrogen or DHEA product, you can reduce your risk of urinary tract infections by more than half. They are safe to use if you've had a history of blood clots, breast cancer, whatever medical problem you can come at me, I can tell you that it's safe, okay? It will not only help with lubrication, help with pain with sex, help with urinary frequency, urgency, leakage, but it will reduce your risk of urinary tract infections by more than half. It's also inexpensive and covered by your insurance. If everybody in Medicare eligibility used vaginal estrogen, we would save Medicare between $6 and $22 billion a year. And in my opinion, that is a conservative estimate because of how many patients are getting urinary tract infections. They're going to their doctor for cultures. They're in the ICU with sepsis. This is a huge economic, morbid, and mortality problem that we are dealing with, and no one cares.
I mean, again, I always try to come up with the steel man and say, is it that they don't care? Or is it that they're unaware? Or is it that they feel that it just needs to fall on the shoulders of somebody other than themselves?
So I think we have a marketing problem. I truly believe this is a marketing problem, because let me tell you.
But how? Okay, let me push back. Not because I don't agree with you, but I'm just going to put my hat on that says the opposite, right? So maybe I am too attuned to this, but I feel like there is nothing more talked about right now. I mean, look at what Halle Berry's doing. Look what Oprah's doing. Look what Gwyneth is doing. I mean, there are so many very powerful, very influential women that are talking about this. Why is this not in the zeitgeist right now?
It's getting better. But again, they don't know how to write the prescriptions. Okay, so let me tell you.
So you're saying there's not enough physicians talking about this then?
Yeah,
if it really comes down to prescription.
Yeah, if you can't get it's not over the counter. If you can't get the prescription, or if you don't go to your doctor saying that you need it. We had an Instagram reel just yesterday that the patient said, I sent my friend went to her doctor, said she was having pain with sex, asked for vaginal estrogen, and her gynecologist said, and I quote, you need to think of other ways to change your relationship from now on. It's not in the cards for you.
What does that mean?
Meaning you
can't have sex anymore?
You can't have sex anymore, right? And the fact is, it's not about sex. It's about urinary tract infections.
Wait a minute. This is impossible for me to fathom. A woman went to her gynecologist and said, I'm having pain with intercourse.
Yeah.
This woman, any idea how old this woman is?
In her 60s.
Okay. And the gynecologist said, didn't you think this gynecologist doesn't know about estrogen?
Honestly, I don't know anymore.
It's
incredible, right? So we could argue Viagra. 1998, Viagra comes out. Viagra changed the world. Billions of dollars. What is Viagra? It is a PDE5 inhibitor. It relaxes smooth muscles of the penis, increased blood flow, gives you a rigid erection. So it helps with arousal for men, okay? If you take it microdose, low doses, it can also help with BPH or urinary problems, right? We love Viagra. We love Cialis. Wish it was in the water. We should study it in women. This is the problem, though, because...
I did in medical school.
Oh, I'm going to talk about that. Yeah. But I will argue we've had Viagra for women long before we've had Viagra for men. And we've known about it since the 1970s. And Viagra for women is vaginal hormones. What do vaginal hormones do? They relax the tissue, they increase arousal, they increase lubrication, they increase orgasm, they help with urinary symptoms. So they do everything Viagra does, and they prevent urinary tract infections. Viagra doesn't do that. So you're talking about better than Viagra. It's inexpensive. Now, it didn't used to be. So when I got out of my training, a tube of estrase was $500.
Wow.
Now, because of people like Mark Cuban and GoodRx, and I've talked to Mark Cuban on my DMs and Twitter, and he knows more about vaginal estrogen than 90% of doctors. But this idea of it's not expensive. A tube of estrogen is $13, right?
And you're saying that the reason that this price has come down is, I know Mark is a very hard liner against the PBMs. Did Mark basically take a sledgehammer to that?
Yeah. They changed the game.
Awesome.
And so it's incredible. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. And he understands this. He literally understands the nuances of why vaginal estrogen is so important.
That's great.
I can't get doctors to do that. I think he's incredible. And so we have a marketing problem. We have a product that is better than Viagra for women. It's been around longer than Viagra. It's inexpensive. It's inexpensive. What are we missing? It's marketing. We're not telling the patients. We're not telling the doctors. And we have a box labeling that says this product causes stroke, heart attacks, blood clots, probable dementia, breast cancer, and needs to be taken with progesterone. Not one of those statements is true. Not one. Okay, so we went to the FDA and says, you got to remove the box. This is not, you're killing people. And the FDA said, nah, we're going to leave the box on. This is a nightmare.
I'm Peter Attia. This podcast relies exclusively on premium subscribers for support, which allows us to provide all our content without taking a single penny from advertisers. I believe this keeps my content honest, making it a trusted resource for listeners like you. As a premium member, you'll get immediate access to our entire back catalog of AMA episodes and all future AMA episodes. You'll get longevity-focused premium articles packed with actionable insights. You'll get unrivaled show notes for each and every episode of The Drive, every topic, every study, every resource from each episode carefully curated for you. You'll get quarterly podcast summaries where you'll learn my biggest personal takeaways from the previous 90 days of expert guest episodes and much more. This journey doesn't have to be navigated alone. We can take these steps towards a better, longer life together. Become a premium member today at peterattiamd.com/subscribe to join me in a shared commitment to a healthier future.